Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to LIMA Online and welcome to Plokta Television. Today, we're live at two platforms at the same time. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm mostly super excited to not be here alone tonight. I have Plokta's director, Jurian Strik, here with me, and Antwerp's co-founder, Chip Lord. Thank you so much, Chip, for attending. It's lovely to have you here and to be able to engage in conversation with you tonight. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's real great. And yeah, we're gonna show a screening program that revolves around a topic that Chip Lord is very familiar to. It's media critique, mass media critique, television interventions, and the like. Together with Jurian, I have curated a program that revolves around artists intervening in any possible way with television throughout the decades. We're going to start like quickly introducing this works to you, and then we're going to watch it. But first, I want to give the floor, or the screen, I should say, to Jurian Strik. Jurian, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Let me introduce Plokta for Chip. Perhaps he doesn't know it yet that well, and the viewers of the regular viewers of LIMA's program might not know it that well either. Plokta is a film festival with film about technology and society and how the two intersect, and all the various events and themes that happen on this intersection. And in a way, it's rather a specific festival because technology and society might be considered as a specific field of research. But once you get to know it, it's like only the beginning. So once you pull the thread, it's like interwoven with numbers of various different realms, political, economical, and so forth. So the Plokta Festival, actually the poster on this side was the poster for the festival that was supposed to happen last year, around now, I think. And the festival was canceled due to Corona. So it was a shame because it was the first edition. So it's quite sore that we had to cancel it. But at the same time, we felt inspired, as many other artists and programmers were in the beginning of Corona, to find a new way of showing Plokta's program. And we came up with PloktaTV. And we're actually now in the second season of PloktaTV already. So this talk is happening on Plokta.nl as well. And with PloktaTV, we actually try to look back to the golden days of television, not so much out of nostalgia, but more because we try to salvage the bits and pieces that we liked from television. So Chip's famous film obviously is built around destroying televisions, and with PloktaTV we try to salvage the parts that we like and we think are working, especially for artists and designers that make films about technology. And one of the bits and pieces we salvaged is the synchronous experience of watching television and being tuned in all together in a similar moment without having the ability to fast forward or pause or go back or go forward. And in a way, that's a very, we found out a very good way of showing films, that artistic films and vernacular films and documentaries that take time to take in. So this televisionness is actually a welcome addition to internet, I think, and to not being not being stuck in platforms that show video, but to kind of make a new platform on the side. So yeah, that's PloktaTV really. Yeah, that's it, Sanneke.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's just the start of it, I would say. And yeah, I don't know if like destroying television and salvaging it is complete opposites. I don't think you can, I don't think that the destroying of the television in Media Burn was a real destroying of television. I think you can only destroy it to highlight it, or maybe the other way around, like you have to be actually on television to be able to destroy it. But that's all things we're going to discuss, this complex relationship on how much we still, maybe even nowadays, need television, while at the same time we are so aware of all the bad sides of it, but we still can't live without it. And yeah, we now make television that you can fast forward, but I hope everyone is just going to stay with us. And although like zapping was already a thing in television times as well, so I wouldn't, like, in that sense, like television was the little brother of cinema, where you actually really had this communal experience, and television hadn't. Although in the family realm, it had, and there's also work that highlights this that we're going to screen tonight. So maybe to make sure we're all on the same page, we're going to quickly introduce the works and its related themes. They're a bit loosely woven together, I would say, and we also loosely deal with television, video, and film in this regard, but I think they work well. So together as a program, we're going to, after this talk, first screen Media Burn by Antfarm, a 1975 piece. It's now presented on Jurian's screen, an iconic film and an iconic image that we see now. And it's also about creating an image and reflecting on the iconic status of creating an image. But that's for later, when we dive more into detail with with Chip. But after this work, we're going to fast forward to 2014 by screening Démontable by the Dutch artist Douwe Dijkstra. Démontable, and you're now seeing a part of that on Jurian's screen, is more a reflection of the omnipresence of television, even in 2014. And yeah, how it now in this film, it literally comes at the kitchen table. So we see the artist surrounded by television, but the television is coming to life, and that what happens on television is actually on the table. So it's a critical view of the news, of how mass media enters our houses, but also in a very playful way, which we're going to see in most of the works, and also by dismantling or showing how it is made. So we first see a lot of by the use of green screen, we see elements of like how mass media comes to your kitchen table, and then after we see how Douwe Dijkstra made it. And I think that's what the position of many video artists are, like they are showing what mass media do, but also by revealing its very structures and revealing its very nature, so that by making it completely naked or visible and transparent, that's the way of demolishing it, whilst diving deep into it. So anything to add to that, Jurian?
Yeah, it also shows the sheer joy of making, I think. So it's you already said, very playful, but it's critical, but at the same time just the artist really enjoying himself as much as he can with all his special effects. So it's kind of that as well.
Yeah, I'm looking for like the English word that says playfulness, but with a critical tendency, because in Dutch we say ludiek, and that's like Chip. Is there a word for that? Like in which it's not, because it's not, when I say playful, I don't only mean playful, but I mean playful with a critical awareness. Is there a word?
Humor is a useful tool. It's actually a very serious, it can be a serious ideological tool to use. So I think, yeah, playing with something and having irony and humor built in is always important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, then the next work, I think it's less less funny. Like you can interact with it, but it is not there to critically, to playfully poke. It's I by Bill Spinhover, a 1993 work, and it's interactive installation. You see it now behind Jurian, of a CRT monitor with an eye on it, and once you come close, you see that the eye is following you. So it's literally television watching you. Yeah, which is a richly discussed topic amongst like television makers, video artists, media activists, media criticizers, so to say. And this is like back then installed at Montevideo, where it was produced. So the institute that LIMA like is a continuation of. Yeah, what do you think? I say it's not playful, not so much funny or humorous, like, but do you think so too, Jurian?
Yeah, the morale is so clear and distinct, and yeah, it's obvious. It's like the very classical Big Brother is watching you, media looking back at you. You're the product, you're the consumer. So, of course, the television is behind like a shopping window, looking through the window to the people as were they on display in a way. So yeah, I wouldn't call it playful because the morale is so distinct and so clear, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to wanting to warn us by actually showing what, but it's yeah, but it's very related to Taoist work in the way that you reveal the very structures of what is happening in a metaphoric way, or in so.
Do you know this work, Chip? Is this have you seen this before?
I have not. No.
Must be a Dutch thing. No. And it's not, yeah, so what we're going to screen, actually, I have to say, is a documentation of the installation, so a registration of the event, because the video file itself is just a recording of the artist's very own eye, but of course it only becomes a work of art once interacting with it and once installed. And then we're going to go again to very playfulness. Video hacking from 1999, I think, by Manuel Sais. And yeah, that's it. Manuel Sais made a mockumentary, I think it is. So it looks like we see a hacker, and he's going to show how he's hacking into videotapes from the local video what is that? Video renting shop. So the 1990s phenomenon that has like completely vanished from our like cultural landscape, but the period you could rent videotapes. And he shows how he goes to these places and then edits the videos in a very subtle way, but just to also reveal our structure of watching cinema. And what he actually, of course, alters is a film, so it's also referring to cinema, but also the watching experience. It's more like the viewer's experience, and the also the joy of creating and appropriating. So in that sense, it's also an internet era work in which we all like mix and match each other's material, so to say. Jurian, any like famous words to add?
Oh, there's a quite famous film that has the same strategy to it. Be Kind, Rewind, I think the title is. Spike Jonze film with Mos Def and Jack Black, I think. And it's two guys working in a video store, and I'm not really sure, but somehow the videotapes got lost and they have to remake the films, and they do it all with very lo-fi special effects. So I'm wondering if they were inspired by this piece, the filmmaker.
Yeah, that's true. I know the piece it's missing. I'm also seeing that I'm being helped in the chat with the word like either ludic or zany. It's called zany. And that brings me actually to the chat. There is a chat archive, so if you have questions for us, or for Chip, or for Jurian, for me, please post them and we'll happily answer them. I'll keep an eye on the chat from now on. And then we'll come to the last work of the screening program, which is, as you can see already now, TV as a fireplace. The Jan Dibbets work from 68 or 69. The work was shown in Gerry Schum's Fernseh Gallery in, I think, 69 it was. So it's a work made for television and screened on television without any further announcement. So people at home were just confronted with this fireplace on their, at that time, of course, CRT tubes. So like a real physical object in the space. And yeah, when you talk about like collective watching or communal sense, this is definitely tapping into that. So Dibbets was really showing how the television was becoming or had become the replacement of the fireplace. So it was the new ritual element in the living room where everyone could gather around and watch. And yeah, I think now it has, like 20 years later, it became a complete like commercial gadget, I must almost say, that everyone could buy like DVDs at that time with like a fireplace on it. But yeah, at this time, I think it really had a sort of visionary quality, or at least really understanding what this object was and what it could bring to an everyday household. Jurian, anything to add to that?
Yeah. This transition from art piece to like the DVD everybody had in the late 90s, I think is super interesting. So this almost happened without anybody noticing, at least the people that bought the DVDs or gave them for Christmas or whatever. So it was totally, they weren't aware that they bought an original art piece in a way. So I think that's interesting actually. And also I always fascinated by these transitions from art to pop culture, and especially when the traces then get erased somehow. So that's definitely what is happening with this video piece, and that's actually why it's one of my favorites, because it made this trajectory. And we're showing it tonight actually, the whole film. So I think it's like 25 something minutes. So so yeah, you can see that burn tonight.
And watch it entirely. Yeah.
I think the idea was also appropriated by some commercial broadcasters who would, especially over the Christmas holiday, would just turn the camera on a fire, and that was no DVD needed, or maybe it was before DVD availability.
So as live television.
Well, appropriated without acknowledging the original artwork, of course, the idea.
But maybe in that sense, it is an iconic image he created there. But I think not many people will think of Jan Dibbets when they see a fireplace screened on television, or but yeah, that's but yeah, thinking of this trajectory that you meant, Jurian, I think that will be a nice bridge to media burn, because that's a work that made quite a trajectory over time and has been screened and analyzed in various media landscapes. And and now that we have this wonderful opportunity of having Chip here with us, I think we can look at the work and what it was at the time, and maybe how we can look at it nowadays. It is created in a time that I wasn't even born. And yeah, so I think it's nice to see it at its time, and then see what it still shows of the media landscape at that time and of today. So Yeah, Chip, and recently an amazing book has been published. Maybe we can even like start with that, like also to show its ongoing relevance. And I think I coincidentally also say like creating of an image when it comes to and from working with television. So yeah, you definitely have created an image out of destruction there.
And there's, of course, the postcard was one of the primary forms, or one of the alternative forms of distributing media burn. So when the work was finished and edited, we had the media burn video artwork, but we also made the postcard. And for many years after media burn, I would go into somebody's home, and this would be on their refrigerator, you know, with a magnet on the refrigerator. So that had, I think eventually there were 100,000 postcards in print. So maybe that was the most successful form of distribution.
And was that also, oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, because that, like we mentioned, like creating of an image, iconic image, a couple of times, and of course, like what you did there, and we haven't even like briefly discussed the work, but I think most of the people who are like watching actually know the work. But maybe we can start with that. Like Media Burn is a media event, as it is called, in which a Cadillac drives into a burning pyramid of burning TVs. Yeah, that the image absolutely says it all. And in the video work, we see this event happening, but very importantly, we see also everything around it. So we see how it is an event at the Cow Palace at that very moment in time, but we also see the representation or the announcement of it on broadcast television, and how it left the media puzzled, or what was happening there and what was actually being created at that time. And there was also a whole merchandise setup at that moment around it. And of course, there was the famous speech of the President Kennedy, impersonated by who was it who impersonated him there?
The performance artist, Doug Hall.
The performance artist, Doug Hall. So yeah, that's what the work entirely entails. And the merchandise, is that also now being in museum collections? Has that also become part of the work?
Yes, I mean, there was the original souvenir booklet, which has been in Steve Side's book, has been reproduced page for page. So it's a complete copy of that. And yeah, I mean, there were, well, the whole idea was to make a live event as a spectacle. I think it's important to note that it was a fictional event, but we videotaped it as if it was a real event. It was a real event, but it was also a fiction. So we were using a nonfiction format of video documentary. And there's an interesting tension there between that. And of course, we had we sent out a press release to all the local TV stations. There were 4, or I guess 5 TV stations, and they all came to do coverage. And in the press release, it said, we're enclosing a press pass, and you'll have to wear the press pass to get into the press area. You know, so we were following all of the sort of rules of staging an event. And it was interesting. The news commentators, of course, followed those rules, but they actually hated being there because they realized it was an art event, it was a fictional event, and they were, after all, about only dealing in true events, you know, unlike today, where there's no relationship to truth often in television news coverage. So we're going to see the short. We're going to screen the works and then come back and talk some more, or should I keep going?
No, you should keep going. We'll just have the entire talk, and afterwards we screen it. So this will all be information for the audience to have them have a clearer view on the work. So yeah, no, definitely keep on going. But what interests me is that it was a fake event and also set up as such. So there was no, because if we see it nowadays, we see it almost as a criticism of the fakeness that we see every day on television. But it was not with this mindset that it was made. At the time you made it, you still kind of believed in the truthness of television.
That's right. Yes. And there were extremes of ridiculousness. So the artist president was one of those. Although the speech that he delivered was actually we had used as a template for the writing of the speech, something that George McGovern, who ran for president in the US in 1972, he lost to Richard Nixon, and then 2 years later, Nixon had to resign because of Watergate. And Rolling Stone magazine asked George McGovern to write a State of the Union address, which they published in, I think, early 1974. So we took that speech and then altered it to fit our critique of the media and media manipulation. And so it had a feeling of an authentic political speech, but just a little twisted. And so that was one of the elements. The news people were playing the role of the news people, but we also had passed out press passes to many of our friends. Anybody we knew who had a camera, we would give them a press pass and they would be in the press area. And we also had hired rent-a-cops to keep the safety of the audience at a distance from the tower of television sets. I think about between 300 and 400 people showed up, and they had received an invitation, a postcard invitation. We had mailing lists from various art events and organizations. And the event was staged in the parking lot of a convention center, the Cow Palace in South San Francisco. So there was plenty of room for free parking, and but we had to create this idea of controlling the crowd behind a safety barrier. So, but what's kind of interesting, I think, I mean, the original idea was to create one image, a singular image of this moment of the crash. And however, that was in, I think, 1970, late 72 or 73, the first sketch of the idea. But of course, we couldn't find any institutional support. We made proposals to different museums and art organizations. Nobody wanted to go near this idea because it seemed it could be dangerous in a metaphorical way as well as actuality. So the time it took to actually realize it was in a planning stage for over a year. And I think because of that, all of these other elements came into play, that it wouldn't just be going out to a remote location and just to make the image, that it should be a public spectacle. Where could we do that? We actually were able to rent this parking lot for, I think, $100 because there was no event scheduled on July 4th, the American bicentennial, a year before the bicentennial. So, so that was another part of it, and creating you know, it's going to only last, you know, 10 seconds from when the car begins to roll until it stops. So there had to be other typical aspects of the event, and the audience had to wait, you know, while we were preparing the car, changing the bubbles from plexiglass to a protective bubble and so forth. So there was a whole countdown and checklist and a master of ceremonies and the speech of the artist president, who came, had his own Secret Service agents, and then departed. And you see all that in the videotape. Of course, each of the local television news stations did run coverage that night, but we knew that we could not go after the fact and ask them for the footage, because, you know, they probably wouldn't give it to us. So we had to drag a very heavy Sony 8650 recorder over to a friend's house that night after the event to record the news. And because none of us had cable TV, so that we had to find a place where we could get a good signal. And that was just under the instinct that how they reported it should also be part of the piece, should be part of a nonfiction documentary of media burn. And, you know, the souvenir booklet, and there was the design of a logo, and there were T-shirts for sale. So there was one after another. There were all these elements that came to support the idea, but the singular idea of making that the crash, the compact.
It's funny because in that regard, it follows the rhetoric of television, like having a very small event, but blowing it up to gigantic proportions to have a longer audience attention span, so to say.
Yes.
And in many regards, it is television specific, so to say. And that's what I find is interesting, like tension field, because it also seems to come from a performative arts tradition. Like one can think of like late 50s, like 60s of like happenings and so on. But this is definitely different because it takes so much account of the role that mass media comes to play once you organize something that is only meant to be on television. Yeah. And I think it is this period that you see artists experimenting with this, and maybe also, even if the speech is like very critical, but maybe even not knowing how to position or what to think of it, like what could one artist do on television, and was it also like experimenting with what an artist could mean in the television landscape?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, of course, there was a way that video art and artists' works or performance works would be typically reported in commercial television as something strange. Look at this ridiculous thing these artists are doing. But this is occurring at a time in the mid 1970s when much of the artists' experimentation with the medium of video was about duration and making works that were, you know, had presence and, you know, went on for the length of the tape, let's say 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And there are some seminal works of that nature. So within that context, we were hopeful that we could put something into the flow of the broadcast that would still communicate, you know, a subversive idea, the destroying of the television as a physical object, a stand-in for the cultural kind of monotony or domination that the programming represented. And, you know, in some ways that's a rather naive idea that you can make the object the receptacle of the larger functional and social practice that's embodied in television. But there were, I should mention, of course, there were the precedences by both Wolf Fostel in Germany and Nam June-paik doing things to the set. Nam June-paik buried some television sets and also, attached a magnet to distort the image. And these had occurred within, the previous decade of experimental works in video art. I love this quote by David Anton, who was writing in a catalog of one of the first video art shows in Philadelphia. And he wrote, "It's unwise to despise an enemy, especially a more powerful, older enemy who happens also to be your frightful parent." That was television in relationship to video art. And
at the same time, there was a Rain Dance Foundation, which you must also have been close to, and we already briefly mentioned it, that I thought was interesting to see that you have a background in architecture, and Rain Dance Foundation was highly drawing on the ideas of Buckminster Fuller, which also had a sort of course, his dome, but also it has to do with spatial constellations. Is there do you see any relation in that, and how do you see your architectural background coming back in this kind of events you were doing with Antoine?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to show this page from the Mediaburn book of the reproduction of radical software. Yeah. It was a journal of alternative video, and this is also the book version of Guerrilla Television, which was made the arguments for a kind of people's TV, or a more participatory use of the medium. So we were engaged in that. Actually, as Antoine, we designed the book Guerrilla Television, and we met Michael Schamberg, and the group that became TV, and worked with them. And this was actually a kind of interesting wraparound design. So, I mean, I think some of our architectural training got funneled into graphic design, because graphic design was a way of realizing something, in 2 dimensions, without having a client. Architects always need clients to create for, to make buildings for. And we didn't have any clients knocking on the door. So we had to invent what the projects would be. And we were able to follow our own intuition and let's say these trends that were going on in the counterculture and in the video art world.
And how was it related to cable television? Because in the Netherlands there is a critical manifestation called Artists Talking Back to the Media, which was really happening at the moment that cable television was freshly introduced in Amsterdam, and that was for them their go and their opportunity to see now we can actually talk back. Is that and I know cable television arrived earlier in the States. Is that also a watershed moment for you that you started responding to it?
Yes, sure. I mean, that was an influence, because cable television seemed to hold out such a promise. It was going to suddenly expand the number of channels available, and there was bandwidth. We didn't use that word then, but it meant that, in fact, legally, often the cable franchise was required to provide a studio and to produce local programming. That was a sort of utopian idea that programming could be made by normal people. It didn't require either an engineer or a lot of training. And different communities, had different forms of that model of homemade video on cable, and it never lived up to the utopian ideal that it could be, interactive for the people, so to speak. But we were very aware of that. That was kind of a discussion and a political effort that was going on in the early 70s around cable television.
It goes really well with early internet, of course. So the same idea that people could make their own content or their own programs in a way. Yeah. So I never realized that television had this promise to it in its early days.
Yeah, because it has spontaneity often, but of course the fixed norms of what a television program should be were often adapted. If you only can work in the studio and you have a multi-camera setup, you begin to fall into the talk show format that was on another commercial station. That was the most dominant form. Yeah, and then Media Burn was made 47 years ago. That's amazing. Yeah. There's still there. Architecture to look back 45 years from the mid 1960s. Those were the models, the beginning of modernism in the architectural world. Corbusier and other master architects, and but it seems so historically distant to me when I was a student. And so now, for you looking back, the Media Burn was made before you were born, but it still seems to have some relevance today. It can be some of the methods and ideas can be applied to where we are. I love this. I want to read this quote from an essay. It's written by a young woman, Theodora Walsh. She has a MFA from Brown University, and she wrote this on the SF MoMA has a open space. It's a kind of not a podcast, but a written space for people to contribute to around issues of artwork. And she wrote about Media Burn because the book had just come out. I guess she had seen it. And at the end of this essay, she says, one could offer a sad rereading of the victorious image engineered by Ant Farm. By destroying television's body, they opened a caged door, releasing the seeping omnipresence of the attention economy. Like everything in our closed atmosphere, the ash from Media Burn's fire isn't going anywhere. So, yeah, the ash of the television sets burning is still in the atmosphere.
Yeah, it goes for the same for the speech, like Kennedy's speech, that one could say it's visionary because it still is so applicable to current times, but one can also say it's exhausting that we're still dealing with the very same issues 47 years after. So there's it's amazing that it still has its relevance, but it's also exhausting at the same time. That
yes.
The world hasn't changed much, or at least not for the better. What I also wanted to tap into quickly is actually the other institute that, of course, is being addressed by this, and that is the museum or the art institute in a broader sense, because I think that's the twofold critique of many of these groups at this time of Ant Farm, but a couple of years later also by General Idea, for instance, that of course, by critically reflecting on television and on video as an artistic medium, there's also an interesting criticism on the Art Institute and what the Art Institute considers as art and how it can enter the institute. How were you dealing with that with the Art Institute when creating Mediabund, for instance?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that that period of time from the late 1960s through the middle of the 1970s in the US, it was a very radical moment. And the art world was changing. I mean, so many artists wanted to leave the given curriculum and just experiment. You have, at the end of minimalist sculpture and abstract expressionism, it just kind of, it's like an explosion into all these other forms of performance and installation. And of course, video was brought into that equation. So it was a very exciting time. And I think it was also because of the counterculture as an influence. I know, especially on Ant Farm, the idea that, and connected to demonstrations against the Vietnam War in the US as well, that, our generation had to make changes. We wanted to reinvent everything, and change the way society was organized. And that included the museums and the art institutes. Of course, the schools and the institutes, then wanted to adapt to what is this new sort of avant-garde activity in video and performance. And I actually got my first teaching job at the University of California in San Diego when they wanted to add a video position to the visual arts department, to have somebody to address video as an art medium. And David Anton was teaching there, and the essay he wrote that quote is from was a seminal description of the early period of video art and experimentation. It's called The Distinctive Features of the Medium. But of course, it's hard to bring the most avant-garde things into an institution without it being, controlled in a way. It's like putting those activities into a controllable situation where they can be taught to a new generation of students. Yeah, so.
But if you it's a sort of critique on the institute via the media, the mass media channel, so to say. So there's a lot of validation also going on. And if you had to pick, is Ant Farm or is Mediabund in its natural habitat on television, or is it in the Art Institute?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And or online, because that's probably where the most eyeballs have seen it, I think, probably. Because it's in fact has been, there's just been a bootleg version of it out there online for years now. Yeah, I don't know. It should be translatable across all platforms, right?
It's
from postcards to the internet.
Yeah, that you mentioned the internet, like a pre-internet work that has found its natural habitat on the internet. I think that's wonderful, and that's also how much it shows the timeless value of the work. I would say so. We can definitely call it an iconic work.
It's constantly changing. For example, if you post a video on Instagram, I think there's a limited time. It can be no longer than 1 minute, or I don't know what it is, but that's of course something that's always changing, and it's phenomenal to me that now I can shoot better quality video in my phone than much better than what we were carrying around, the a heavy camera and a recorder on our shoulders in the 70s. So that's just an example of really maybe that dream of democratization of video has arrived because everybody has the camera right here. But of course, pencils have been available for years, many, many years, and anybody could write a great novel with a pencil, right?
Yeah, and the good thing is that we're not being monitored when using a pencil, and that there's no big tech corporations behind. So that's still the problem of this democratization, that like there's commercial parties involved. And I was thinking, would media burn have failed if no press coverage would have been screened on television? Was a documentation of the event and then entering as a video museum collections, would that have been a work of art as you had intended it, or not?
I would say yes. You're right. If they had walked away but not broadcast it, then it would have been a failure. And that was something that we didn't have control over that really. And some of the I remember in particular one team, a cameraman with the reporter, they were hostile to the whole idea. They hated this parody of John Kennedy as the artist president, but they were compelled to take that footage back to the station, hand it to the editor, and their job was done, And then it also brings up, of course, the news anchors who were sitting behind the desk when the media burn sequence was shown. Their comments are just add so much to they make the point of media burn, I think. Yeah, one of them says, I don't think I want to know about that, and each of the reporters in the field, they had to come up with a tagline to end their account, right? Well, let's see, the one guy ends up with, well, who knows, throwing up his hands. I don't know. And so those became the perfect commentary and counterpoint built into our videotape.
Yeah, that's what makes it so amazing. But there was a lot of risk at stake. Like you were like giving it away, so to say, and that makes it something completely different from the happenings 10 years before that were also dealing with documentation, art institute, and so on. But now you really actively gave television broadcast as an actor a voice in it, and a part of the creation of the image, or maybe even they created more the image than you did. You just provided it.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, this was so amazing, and I think we're now all more than ready to watch the work. Jurian, I look at you. Do you have anything still to add, to ask?
Yeah, one final question perhaps. Has your stance towards television changed? Because this was in the heydays of television, and of course artists were fueled by then to fight television with all means possible. But has your stance changed in the past years? Has
it changed my attitude, or?
Yeah, your attitude towards
viewing habits.
TVs.
Well, I think in some ways I welcome the streaming era that we're in now, because it's possible to see so much more, and in a funny way, it is a bit of a payoff for all the years that began with cable television expanding from, at the beginning of the 1970s, most towns had only, access to maybe 2 or 3 channels, and they were basically the same. I mean, that's the point we wanted to make. They're ideologically, those 3 networks are presenting the same, top-down picture, point of view. So, but, the corporations are still in charge, aren't they? I mean, and they keep figuring out ways to make us pay for more and more content and the variety that we might seek. It's all out there, but you still have to buy the content from them. So yeah, that's the evolution of my feelings, I guess, to television.
And I want to end with a commercial buying note, but that's related to the book. I think you should all buy the book by Steve Side and show it once again. And on April 1st, there will be an event also around this book, and it's a stream again. So that's the big fortune of like stream era. Otherwise, also Chip, we wouldn't have been able to have this talk, and I'm extremely thankful for that. So. Thanks everyone. So,
that event will be hosted by the writer of the book, Steve Side. So you can find it at the Berkeley Art Museum online, or I guess Berkeley Art Museum Pacific Film Archives .org probably.
I'll share a link on the LIMA channels for everyone to be able to attend it. I'm gonna round up this talk, but that absolutely doesn't mean that this screening night is over. It's actually about to start. So we're gonna now screen the works that we have introduced, and we're gonna be off, but please watch the entire program and watch the 25 minutes of TV as a fireplace, just as an experience, and also as a ritualistic communal experience, because if you all stay online, you know that we will be all watching 25 minutes of a fireplace collectively. So as if our homes were connected for a little while. So thank you all once again. A big thanks to Chip Lord for being here with us, and hoping to see you all next time. Enjoy the screening program. Bye.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
PloktaTV Season 2.
They go beyond cold statistics and provide a keen and touching insight into the TV generation. TV Guide.
The 4th of July, of course, is notorious for heavy traffic fatalities. And
Ford used the occasion to deliver a speech on individual freedoms.
This 4th is starting out no differently. So far, across this country, there have been 120 traffic deaths and 30 drownings since the start of the holiday.
Well, to some people, the 4th of July just wouldn't be the same without fireworks, and most fire officials agree.
Only 10,000 people turned up at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, where the United States actually declared its nationhood. At the hall, Bob Hope received the Freedom Medal. So we'll show you how the 4th of July was celebrated around the Bay Area. Whoopee!
A media event is something that happens only because somebody made it happen, only because somebody figured that television news cameras would show up to watch it happen, whatever it is. That's a media event. It used to be called a publicity stunt, but now if you see the president shaking hands in a crowd of people, or the first blow of a wrecker's ball knocking down a building, or anything from San Francisco's Broadway Strip, it is probably a media event. They come in all shapes and sizes. Well, today, some people decided to stage what they call the ultimate media event. Now, right away, everybody perks up. The ultimate? That's interesting. They told us it was a media event, and they invited us down. And so with knowledge of forethought, and not alone, but knowing it was going to be a good one, David Louis showed up.
Good afternoon. Welcome again to Media Burn. The artists are all busy preparing the TVs. The Media Burn vehicle is ready for action. The souvenir stand is selling souvenirs. Don't forget your Media Burn t-shirt.
$1 for the program.
30 cents for 2 postcards.
Right. Thank you very much. Postcards are going. Postcards are great. Collector's items. I meant to do that.
There's money in media burning.
Wait a minute. It's flying away.
My dollar flew away?
Yes. Well, that's for little boys. Yeah. Here, and then the 12 is the one you have on.
Here's for that.
How much do programs cost? For what?
For the program.
Okay, thank you.
Well, tell me, what motivated you to come here to Media Burn today?
Well, I've always watched a lot of TV, and
A lot of action over here.
I knew there were going to be programs for $1, and, well,
Come and get your
What are your expectations?
well, I'm hoping that there are no deaths, you know, no fatalities, no fires burning through the asbestos suits. I'm hoping that, well, I'm hoping that it really kicks off the old bicentennial, which, I mean, I was even thinking of bringing champagne, but I only had a Magnum.
Do you think that this is just another example of violence on television?
Actually, I don't. I have a very kind of theoretical view of it, and I see it as, you know, highlighting the themes of violence and action on television, and that it might even make a better television event than a real event, you know. It's real important to center on these macho themes and wear our macho t-shirts and just get right
So
into it.
you think this is conceptual art? You feel there's a message to this event?
Well, I hope so, you know.
Thank you.
Our program.
Oh, yes. Which name would you like? Here.
Glad you brought some junk food so we could relate to television.
Sweetheart.
Funny ones here. It doesn't matter. A nice holster you got from attic.
Hello.
Look like a slide projection.
Hi there, you're from Channel 4?
That's right.
What brings you out here today?
What I have to say, I'll say on Channel 4, 5:30 and 6:30.
What angle are you taking on the story?
If you're going to take a Cadillac and you're going to have it go through a bunch of TVs, then I think it's real important that people get real close to the TVs. Otherwise, it's like watching a football game. It's not art anymore. It's only art if you're right there. If you're not there, then it's not art.
What are you doing here today?
Excuse me, Mr. Driver. Are you worried about your chances for survival? I'm more worried about America's chances for survival than my own personal chances for survival. A very heroic statement.
Do you have any last words you'd like to say?
No, only first ones. We're signing on, we're not signing off. First the TVs go, then the freeways, then the factories.
When do the skyscrapers come in?
Soon, very soon, and the McDonald's.
McDonald's?
Yes, all of them. This is just a beginning.
Do you feel the tension now?
It's all around. I think this is going to relieve a lot of it. If everyone in America would burn just one TV set.
Let's make for fighting, rust a steering column, wheel adjust a bumper, gut confronting rear. You get it with the engine here, a four-speed kit that's on the floor, and inside would bring you some more. How you dodge cold with so much in such a little car.
Now to start things rolling, we're going to unveil the Phantom Dream Car. Just 6 months ago, this was a '59 Cadillac Eldorado Baritz convertible. Now it sits before us, transformed by over 1,500 hours of handcrafted work by the members of Ant Farm. Inside, the driving controls have been moved aft to make it a two-seater, thereby extending the hood line to 18 feet as a homage to Harley Earl. The two dummies will drive by closed-circuit television. There is a camera mounted in the vertical tail fin and protected by a Lexan shield. They will view a monitor mounted between their bucket seats. They will be receiving a digital countdown on their TV screen, as well as digital speedometer readings. To minimize danger, Ant Farm has formed reinforced fiberglass canopies which fit where you now see the clear ones. The right side door will function as an escape hatch. The car will hit the TV sets at approximately 55 miles per hour. The Phantom Dream car will be for sale after the event. Something that everyone would like to have in their garage. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce my important guest who will deliver the July 4th Independence Day speech. Ladies and gentlemen, President of the United States, John F. Move out of the way. No.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, members of the press, my fellow Americans, on this Independence Day, 1975, the American spirit is uncertain. We have seen in this decade an unworthy war. We have seen political scandal. Now we are seeing economic turmoil. From these has come not only the dangerous condition of our country, but a pervasive doubt of our ability to correct it. I believe we can find solutions in our origins. Our nation grew from a revolution against political tyranny. Our forefathers threw out a distant alien government. Now we must finish that revolution by replacing the structure of economic privilege and by throwing out the alien tyranny of the war makers and the money makers. What has gone wrong with America is not a random visitation of fate. It is the result of forces which have assumed control of the American system. Economic royalists, as oppressive as the Crown 200 years ago. These forces are militarism, monopoly, and the mass media. Television, because of its technology and the way it must be used, can only produce autocratic political forms, hierarchies, and hopeless alienation. Mass media monopolies control people by their control of information. In our vast society, it is virtually impossible to escape the influence of commercial advertising. And who can deny that we are a nation addicted to television and the constant flow of media? And not a few of us are frustrated by this addiction. Now I ask you, my fellow Americans, haven't you ever wanted to put your foot through your television screen? Today, there stand before us two media matadors, brave young men from Ant Farm, who are about to go forth into the unknown. And let me say this, these artists are pioneers. They are pioneers as surely as were Lewis and Clark when they explored uncharted territory. They are pioneers as surely as Armstrong and Aldrin when they set foot on the moon. They do this not from self-interest, but intuitively as an act of patriotism. They do this not for themselves alone, but for all Americans. And I believe they are, by this act, reiterating a most cherished and deeply felt belief that the greatest statements about this great country of ours are heartfelt by individuals and never prearranged by a committee. And so, my fellow Americans, let me say this finally about Media Burn. The world may never understand what was done here today, but the image created here shall never be forgotten. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good luck, Uncle Buddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, the artist.
Now the artist will remain burn vehicle. Prepare for the final countdown.
Hi, sweetheart.
Then we'll be pulling forward to the staging area. We'll have a
Harry, shit.
now 5 minutes until the crash.
Okay, I want to pull up. Okay. Pull up in the way. Please clear the staging area.
Make contact with mission control.
Hey, Doug, stick out your microphone there.
Okay.
On the side.
now be replacing the clear plexiglass bubbles with the solid fiberglass protective shield.
Okay, now
This is car contacting media control. You hear, please?
Roger, media control.
Okay, just confirming, because we'll put the bubbles on now, then we'll start the final.
Can you pull it out?
They won't be given the go-ahead. Please observe the barricades.
Douglas, come on.
Repeat, do not cross over the barricades.
Okay.
When the fiberglass shields are in place, the drivers will not be able to see.
Okay, hey, here it is. Hey, Curtis, there it is.
Yeah, but it's very unstable.
I haven't switched the input over. You have video output now?
We'll use only the walkie-talkies. In about 2 minutes, we'll install the cable.
Right.
The video is working properly. Wait till it's lit to give us a call? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Buckle up. Hey!
No, you want to break that?
Burning? I can't tell. Hey, platform? No?
Go.
Smashing a '59 Cadillac into a wall of old television sets is art, then the world may rest tonight with a new masterpiece. If it is culture, then perhaps we're all in a degree of difficulty not previously experienced in this society. Well, maybe, could it be? Well, I do know this. I'm Eric Smith.
Now that is weird. You've got to say that is pretty weird.
You mean Eric, of course.
Yeah, of course, Eric, and also the car going into the television sets and the imitation of
I think
John
it's over
Kennedy.
our heads.
Oh, what's it all mean? Well, presumably the message is for the media. Get it? Don Knapp for Action News at the Cow Palace.
I don't think I want to get it. Do you?
From the Culture Corner tonight.
And that's it for this week. We hope you have a really good 4th of July weekend. Have a bang-up time. Good night. See you Monday.
is actually broken that we need to fix? Basic question.
Is poetry addressing modern conflicts in the same way?
He's only 17.
It can be very confusing trying to make sense of the debates.
Certainly a chilly theme to the weather for the next few days.
I just saw a weapon. I'm pretty sure, I'm about 99.9% sure that was a weapon. These guys just dismounted. We need to take these guys out.
He's pulling a weapon right now.
Is he?
It looks like it.